Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting the like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, today's first story, you may have heard parts of the other story in other places as well, because there's been several updates on this one. So if you want to skip certain parts of the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. This one's from SoCalPE from the entitled People subreddit saying, "My sister wants to use a burial plot she doesn't own. My sister, 54 female, and I, 63 male, are estranged for a lot of reasons. She was the golden child. I was given a 63 Chevy pickup when I got my driver's license. She got a Mustang convertible. I went to college and she did drugs and had children without marriage. I got student debt. She got a mobile home, which she of course lost due to drugs. She had 2 wonderful kids that we were able to get taken from her and are doing well. Our father raised them. My father and mother were divorced in the 1970s, due in part to the stress of my sister. My mother tried to help her. She let her live with her and helped her get jobs, but she always relapsed. So now to the present situation. My father died 4 years ago. I bought him a nice burial plot in Bozeman, Montana. The plot is in my name and is in a very nice location in the veterans section. My mother died last summer. I went up and was at the hospital when she died. My sister was nowhere around. We're able to reconnect without her. My mum's will stated that my sister and I were supposed to get the house jointly, but somehow she got on the deed by right of survivorship, which meant she got it. She tried to get me help pay the remaining mortgage, but that wasn't going to happen. So she had it to sale and I bought it. She was mad and took mum's remains and disappeared, so we couldn't hold a ceremony. Now 6 months later, she reappears and says that she's paying for a burial. But here is the catch. My mother is a veteran, so she has a veteran group to pay for the room, the VA for the headstone, and I get a call from the funeral home asking if they bury her with dad, someone who was divorced from for 50 years. Coroner says to OP, in addition to the headstone, mum might also be eligible for burial at a US veteran cemetery for free. Locator DD214 if you haven't already made other burial plans. OP says, we told her she could be buried for free at a national cemetery. My guess is she loves the plot I snagged for my dad, and I admit it is nice. But someone says, why is OP responding to his sister? OP says, I'm not responding to her. I have no way to respond to her. She blocked me a while ago. We have talked through lawyers, like the little prick who got on the deed, so the will was useless. The only reason I found out about this all was the funeral home realized that the plot wasn't owned by my sister or my mother and tracked me down. They had my number because they buried my dad. Opie then explains why he's not burying his mother's ashes with his father's. Opie says, well, there are 2 things. Grandkids want to get their grandma buried away from my sister. They don't have the history I have with mum and dad. They saw them together without the fighting, so they want to get it done. They want to be able to visit them. My niece does take her kids to visit my dad's grave, so this is a factor. Giving it to my sister just makes me sick. I was going to buy a plot when mum died last summer, but she ran with her remains. Now there is no time. So I'm backed into a corner, and the kids are more important than my hurt feelings. But I get to write the obituary. Opie adds their first little update, which was in the comments of that post, and said, I'm going to update. 1, I fat-fingered my original post. My sister is 57, not 54. My parents' divorce was official in 83, but they separated in 78 or so. I corrected this by answering some commenters. 2. Was she really a terror as a kid? She got in drugs at 10 and was sneaking in boys at 13 when I was at college. This was 78 to 83. I was out of state. My father was retired Navy and there was a recession. My mum did work, but it was a strain. I went through college on student loans, scholarships, and jobs. 3, they tried treatment and buying her good behavior. My brother basically quit the whole thing and joined the army. He was a member of the 101st, so we're not all screwed up. Now the update. I talked to the funeral home today. It seems that my sister's plan was to place my mum's remains in the veteran wall at the cemetery. But Bozeman Cemetery is not part of the national cemetery system. Normally a wall intimate would be free for a veteran, but since Bozeman isn't a part of the system, is $500. So she points at Dad's plot and said, bury her there. The rest is history. The funeral calls me when they figure out the plot isn't owned by her or my dad, and here we are. I'm trying to see if we can get the war slot again. The remains are back at the funeral home. Family. 9 days after this, OP comes back in and says, so the short backstory is my sister is a bitch who is holding my mother's remain hostage to get her way. She wants to bury my mother in the plot I own that I buried my father in. They've been divorced for more than 40 years. The update? After some research, I offered to pay to intern my mother in the veteran wall. My sister threw a fit. Not directly to me. We don't talk. She just let the funeral home know she wouldn't return the remains. I would have to buy a few plots. But I just bought a house and I'm furnishing it so money is tight. She knew that. It was my mum's house and she's mad I bought it. She has driven by it several times. I'm about to put it out on the short-term rental market. So after talking to my family, the grandchildren and others, I've thrown in the towel. We're burying my mum in Dad's plot. She will have an in-ground brass marker. It kills me that my sister has reduced my mum's service to a brass welcome mat to my father's headstone. My family has said they will know, but damn, it hurts. My sister cannot take some money from the sale of the house and buy a plot or split the cost with me. Opie also says I guess this is a small update. I talked to the funeral home yesterday. My sister will be bringing the remains on the day of the burial and watching them, so switching it really isn't a possibility. I have to go back up this summer, so I'm going to look at re-interning her then. At least it wouldn't be above freezing. Opie explains his mother's background and her wishes after death. Opie says my mum is a veteran too. I'm very proud of her service from 56 to 61. She could have been a secretary or medical assistant but decided to be an electronic technician. Not many females of those in the Navy. She worked on the early communication systems for the nuclear submarines in Rhode Island and San Diego, leading edge technology at the time. Last I talked to her, she wanted her ashes to be spread in the mountains. Why my sister is insisting on this burial and holding the ashes hostage is a mystery. I'm actually surprised I haven't had a ransom note yet. Opie adds information on why he's renting his mother's house out and says I should add to this. The house was built in 2014, so it wasn't the family home, but my sister smokes like crazy. It smelled bad. The carpet was stained, as were the walls and window coverings. The garage floor was stained with dog pee and smelled. So we tore out the carpet and painted with Clears. We sealed the garage floor and put in new window treatments. The dishwasher had leaks, so we had to mold remediation, and the HVAC system, or was it HVAC system, had issues. So we expect with the market to get a positive return in 2 years or so. Then we can come back and remodel the bathrooms and move in or keep it for income. That was my Christmas holiday. Putting my mum's retirement house back into proper condition. I think she would like it. OP shouldn't have given to his sister's demands, commenters were saying. OP says, well, with mother gone, she has lost her last chip in the game. We haven't spoken in years except through lawyers or via my mother. She lost the house she inherited and has to move far from Bozeman. Her kids hate her. Her grandkids run to me when I come up there. My son used to like her, but now can't stand her after what she pulled at her sister's wedding. She won this one, but really, at what cost? Someone questions why the cemetery allowed this to happen, and Opie said the cemetery didn't. Once they realized this plot she was talking about, they called me for permission. This is what started this mess. The OP updates again and says today is the day of the burial. I was going to update afterwards just to say we got it done, but the last 20 hours hit. My sister cancelled the room at the funeral home and made it a graveside service only. She got a refund for the room. The reason she gave, they're shooting guns for the salute, and that should be outside. I found out when the funeral home called last night to ask me to pick up the urn and take it to the grave. My sister is in a wheelchair and cannot come graveside. I sent the word out on the family message and her son. The only one who talks to her exploded, as did her daughter. He called and she cried. An honest answer would probably be, I needed drug money and the disability check is days away, but so I arranged to get a table at a military-themed restaurant in Bozeman. If you're from the area, you know the one, and we'll gather there to tell stories. Just a few minutes ago, I get a call from the funeral home and they were offering a room at a discount, but we're sticking with our plans. Some comments I would like to make. Some people think I'm blaming my sister for becoming addicted to drugs and alcohol at 10. I'm not. I blame my parents for moving to a drug-rich area, the government for not handling the drug issue, and the medical establishment for not seeing addiction as the disease it was at the time. My post would be much longer if I went into the social and political issues of the late 70s and early 80s and how it broke up the nuclear family. I blame my parents for trying to buy her good behavior and a recession for the stress that ended their marriage. They also never forced her to finish school, which limited her ability to succeed. I blame her for wasting the multiple opportunities she was given as an adult. She was given a car, repossessed, a mobile, lost because she spent the welfare money on drugs instead of space rent, a truck, partially restored 63 Chevy C10 sold for drug money, lost custody of 2 kids who have turned out well. The list doesn't include the money she has taken from people over the years. As far as this funeral goes, my mother would have been buried in her home state of Pennsylvania, near her family, but in September, if my sister hadn't raked their remains and disappeared. So there were some relevant comments on this one that said, you may want to check the ownership of that plot. If she is anything like my sibling, she may have sold it from under the family. My siblings trashed all the living trust information our parents had set up. I tried to get them to change it years ago. They didn't. Now they are stuck and I can't help them or myself. Opie says this all started when my sister sent out the message that she paid for the funeral for Mum, who died in September, and she took the remains while her daughter and I were in the process of planning the funeral. I got a call from the funeral home, same one that buried my dad 4 years ago, that she told them to bury her in the same plot. They had been divorced since 1983. She found out that it cost her to bury her in the Veteran Wall in Bozeman because it had not achieved the VA approval yet. I bought that plot for my dad. Another commenter says, in your earlier post you said the VA paid for the room, but she got the refund when she cancelled. I feel like that's something she could get into a lot of trouble for, no? Opie says, I believe you're referring to the $500 that the state of Montana provides to the veterans for burials I mentioned. The VA pays for the markers and a plot in a national cemetery, but your point is taken. I'm wondering what the costs were. Commenter says, could you possibly move your mum later? We've had issues like this in our home country where they went and disturbed my aunt's remains just to put someone not related to us that everyone was opposed to. It was wild, but it's kind of done. But if your parents were divorced, why would they be kept together? I guess I would only put them together if I myself wanted to be close to both of them. I'm sorry for your losses. I'm sorry for your sister being so troubled. I hope she can find a way out and mental health assistance. Opie says, that is what we are thinking of doing this summer. Opie adds another update and says the service was Thursday at 1 at the American Legion Gallatin Valley Post 14. Did the final salute with a rifle volley and taps. The Navy sent an officer and enlisted to do the flag presentation. I told him about her service and said some words to the people who came, but being in a snow-covered field limited who would come. Afterwards we met at a restaurant and told stories. The grandkids were really interested in what kind of mother she was and were surprised when we told them she drove a motorcycle to work. Now, I'm sure you're interested in what happened with my sister. When I arrived at the funeral home, I was shocked to find what little she had arranged for. I drove her remains to the gravesite and my brother actually put them into the ground. At my dad's funeral, we arranged for a hearse to take his remains to the cemetery. It was a little funny. Me, my wife, my brother and my mum's urn took a quick drive down Main Street, Bozeman, so we could say goodbye before hitting the cemetery. But while the ceremony was going on, an SUV came up. It was my sister watching from the road. I arranged for the flag to go to my brother since I had my dad's flag. I could see her shouting as he was presented the flag. After that, we each said something over the grave and headed to our cars. My sister called her son over and handed her 2 bags containing vials of mum's ashes for him and my niece. At the restaurant, they gave them to me and my brother. They're great kids. She then drove by yelling at me for ruining the ceremony or something, then drove off. So that's it until summer, when we will decide to either move mum to Pennsylvania to be with her family. My brother is looking into that issue, or a national cemetery, or we scatter her ashes. I would like to address some comments made. 1. Why am I short-term renting the house? My initial plan was long-term rental until my wife and I retired in 2 to 3 years. My son, while working on the house, has fallen in love with Montana and wants to move up at the end of summer. So we are short-term renting until then. I've met with some neighbors and given them my contact information in case a client gets out of hand. The house is near ski and outdoor adventure activities, so I don't see a problem. 2. I do not blame my 10-year-old or 13-year-old sister. It is the 30-plus-year-old woman who never taken the opportunities to get straight seriously. I also blame my parents, but they paid with their marriage and the fact that they never had the retirement they wanted. I also blame the government, but that is a major rant. 3. Why didn't I take her kids? I tried, but in California, they will fight to keep the kids with a bad mother. My wife and I would buy groceries and take it to them. I took the kids to the dentist, but we were limited to what we could do, and she knew if she gave up the kids, she would lose a bargaining chip. It was a cloak and dagger operation to get the kids to Montana, and then in front of a judge that finally saved them. A deleted commenter said to OP, OP, didn't your sister say they were shooting guns off at a funeral? Yep, they don't do that. My dad was Navy retired. He was in for 25 years. He was buried 5 years ago. They sent 2 soldiers to escort the urn and stand at attention, but that is the extent of it. I would take everything your sister says with a grain of salt. It sounds like she lies a lot, so I would not spend too much time on that, the things she says and her behavior. Opie says, I was there. The American Legion Post fired a salute for both my dad and my mum. They provide the shell casing to the family afterwards. Commenter says, I'm sorry, I know this isn't funny, but all I can imagine is some crazy lady doing drive-bys and yelling out the window at a funeral service. Commenter says, glad you finally got it all resolved and you said goodbye to your mum. So it was nearly 7 months later from that last update that OP comes in again and says, so it's been 7 months or so. I'm in the process of moving my mother's remains to the Veterans Wall. There are some issues we're still working on, but the process is in motion. It's been an experience. I've learned a lot. The VA considered her buried, so she isn't entitled to free burial anymore. They lost her marker in the mail, so she doesn't have one. We're working that out, trying to get another one for the war. The charge to de-intern her is astronomical, but I will live with that. In the meantime, we ended the short-term rental of the house and my son has moved in. While short-term renting was interesting, it was stressful too. We paid the mortgage and taxes, so it did its job. Bill collectors kept coming for my sister and to pick up the medical equipment she rented for my mother, that she failed to return. That was interesting to explain to our renters. I got calls from creditors for my sister asking for a location. She has changed her phone number and disappeared. They also wanted to know if I inherited or bought the house. It seems my sister was on my mother's credit cards and ran up some debt, so they were going after her. If I'd inherited the house, they were going to claw it back. So I had to create a PDF with the records to send when I got these calls to show I bought the house and that I was cut out of the will by my sister. That seems to have ended the calls for now. Commenter says to OP, you are so patient, I'm envious. We are having issues with my oldest brother-in-law and lawyers are involved. I actually refused to accompany my husband when they all went to sign off on selling one of those properties because I could not promise to keep a civil tongue. Opie says, it helps she has disappeared and I live in San Diego. I'm retiring in the next 2 years, so if she is around Bozeman, we may run into each other. I do know she lost a leg to diabetes. She never took care of herself. Our father had diabetes and never had the issues she has. He stopped smoking and drinking. She didn't. That is all I know, and I know that because she tried guilt-tripping her kids. Commenter says to OP, quit answering these calls. If you do, demand they cease calling and that all correspondence be on paper. Again, quit answering the phone. If you have a probate executor, it should all be handled by them. They may have waited too long to be paid by the estate and are fishing. Opie says normally I would agree with you, but this involved an actual legal issue. If there are outstanding debts, they need to be taken care of before transferring deeds. They were confirming the house was a sale and not some sort of sham sale. I hate those collectors who call the kids going with the, you want your parents walking around in the afterlife, burdened by the debts on their souls. They're trying to get you to pay anything on a debt, then claim you own the whole thing. The commenter says, if the estate is managed right, a notice of death in publication, and set time periods that loaners, banks, etc. get to file for payment. If they miss the cutoff date, they're out of luck. Opie says, and if the estate is managed by a person who isn't honest, who will not tell the union that the person has died so they can collect a few more months of retirement. That is a lot going on with the questionable lawyers who will not let me see the will. Funky changes in the deed, etc. Most papers will not allow just anyone to put in death notices. I tried. The good news is, she played herself. The original will, we inherited the house equally, but she had the right to live there. I promised my mum to live up to that. If she hadn't changed things, I'd have had to help pay the mortgage, and she would be living there. Dodged a bullet there. It was like one of those comments said to OP in this, the absolute incredible amount of patience while trying to honor his mum properly and dealing with the absolute chaos that was going on at the same time is just mind-blowing for me. I know there was talk of addiction and various other things going on, which, as always, may be a reason but never an excuse, as we always say. But weaponizing your own mother's ashes, manipulating her kid's grief, and even possibly, it sounded like scamming funeral expenses, and in the end sounded like she's hiding from creditors, whilst burning every single bridge along the way. That is absolutely wild. I can't help but think how exhausting it must be to live like that, constantly scheming, lying, hurting people you love the most. It's just a tragic waste. And after all that, I'm glad that things are moving in a less chaotic way for OP in the end. But what do you guys make of this one? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Wow. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being here, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.